Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vinyl Junkies, episode 44. We even have a working title for this. What the heck did I call this, Kim? Funky Kingston, Black Sabbath, Funky Kingston, and Psychedelic Samba. Say hello to our lovely and effervescent co-host, Kimberly. How are you, Kim?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Sam?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Effervescent. I feel like a Sprite or a
you
7 Up.
you are kind of effervescent. You're also kind of flat and miserable pretty often, but I like effervescent, so it works.
Flat and miserable. Okay.
So we got, dude, none more black than me.
None more black.
So speaking of black, that's one of the things on the show agenda. We will talk about Black Sabbath and have the Black Sabbath argument. Looking forward to hearing you guys and what you have to say about all of it. Join in on the conversation. Born again, yay or nay? Me and Kim are going to wrangle. Then we're going to talk about stuff that we were listening to. Funky Kingston. I'll let Kim lead off there. And I've got some Psychedelic Samba as I'm putting together my summer mixtape. The swimming pool is so close to being done, Kim. I can't wait. So all the music is beginning. Sorry, go ahead.
We can get into ours. It was like 100 degrees yesterday, so...
Well, you're up in Texas, right? You're down in Texas, so your swimming pool's running 24/7 all the time.
Yeah, it gets too cold most of the time of the year. And my pool is tiny, but it stays really cold. But I bet you I should go check the temperature in it because, Lord, it is hot in Texas right now. So,
got you. So, Kim, before we start, I would just like to say happy anniversary to Vinyl Junkies shows. I don't even know when this whole thing started, the exact date, because I haven't really archived, but we've been doing these Vinyl Junkies shows here, broadcasts have been going on for a year. So 500,000 viewers every month, over 100,000 viewers every single week. Thank you to all of you. Thanks to all the sponsors that make it happen. And, let's get on with the nerdery. Why does the Black Sabbath born again argument exist, Kim? What's your take on this?
I mean, I think people they missed Ozzy. A lot of them were upset about Dio, and then Ian came in and they were like, I'm done, or whatever, just on principle. But they're just, people want what they want, and he was just so completely different. But I freaking love that album. I think that album is awesome.
It's fun.
Yeah,
I'm looking so forward to... Sorry, go ahead. Am I interrupting? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'm looking so forward to having this conversation with you because I come from a pretty unique experience. I was 13 in 83 and had the album in 83. So I grew up with this on tape, right?
I did too. Yeah.
I grew up with the entire Black Sabbath thing my entire life as it was happening. So I was full on the Dio thing. I loved, in my case, it was Mob Rules because I had the Mob Rules tape and my friend had Heaven and Hell, right? So even though like now history shows that Heaven and Hell is the big one, Mob Rules was the one I always had.
Right.
But we would follow that. And I don't know if it's strange, but from my perspective, Kim, when Ian Gillan came in, I just saw it as another Black Sabbath record. I don't understand the backlash that surrounds this.
Well, again, I think people get real set with their bands. They get upset when their bands do something different. They get real upset when they do something radically different. But we'd had Dio for a little bit, so I don't think Ian was that much of a stretch that guys could just, I don't know. There's parts of it that are so over the top that's what I like. I like that it's so
the legacy of the record.
The tour with the gigantic Stonehenge and the midget. Spinal Tap made it a major part of the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
To make fun of it. So, and then one of the guys stole Was it Ian who stole,
No,
or was it Bill who? Someone of them
the
stole
story,
somebody else's car at the recording
yeah,
at
the
the
story.
manor and crashed it.
The story behind the record is that it wasn't supposed to be a Black Sabbath record at all. It was supposed to be just a project that they were doing together. And I mean, if you look through the entire history, you can just weave such a straight line through Deep Purple and Black Sabbath and Rainbow. And, you know, all of those projects kind of all come together. I'm sure I've missed a bunch along the way. But so this Deep Purple, Whitesnake is the other one. This Deep Purple thing working with Black Sabbath was never supposed to be a Black Sabbath album. It was supposed to be just a project. So when they're recording this record, they recorded at one of their mansions. I think it's Iommi's mansion or something. They used to drink and do a lot of drugs, right? So at one point they're in the pub and they're there. Look, the Ian Gillan goes, all right, well, I'm going to come, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up just this big fucking pop-up tent in on the yard of the villa.
Oh, I forgot about that story.
Yeah. And Iommi didn't think anything because it's like, you know, it's a night at the pub. People get drunk and you say stupid things. They roll up to do this show and doesn't fucking, let's assume it's Iommi. Maybe I got that part of it over, but doesn't Iommi see this big pop-up village show up on the fucking lawn of the manor? Gillan, throughout the recording of Born Again, lived on Iommi's lawn. So yeah,
I didn't know that the manor was Iommi's. I thought it was just a recording thing. It doesn't matter. I know that Ian, had some gigantic like circus tent thing to live in, multiple room tent.
Yeah,
there where they were recording.
I found
very rock and roll.
Yeah, and another thing like about it, like, look, I did make notes, but ultimately it's about the story. Something happens with the memory. The minute Google comes around, you don't need to remember every little thing anymore. So let's just assume that it's the legend of Tony Iommi, right? Even the songs didn't have any great meaning. It's not like they were trying to be overtly satanic. It's just, it seemed like just a confluence of things that came together to make it this record that, I don't know, it's kind of like some kind of bastard child of heavy metal or something, because what you were talking about, crashing the car, that's Ian Gillan wrote about regular life things, right? So Trashed is about the experience you're talking about.
Right.
Where he stole one of their cars. I forgot who, Bill Ward's car or something, and started driving like an asshole and crashed his car. So that song's about that. The one that I found interesting is Disturbing the... Do you have a favorite on that album?
I do like Trashed. What's the... I can't think of the title. I can't think of the tracks right now. There's another one I really, really like.
Zero the Hero, Disturbing the Priest, Hotline, Keep It Warm, Digital...
Hotline, maybe, I really like.
Digital Bitch.
Oh, I forgot about it. I need to bust that album out and listen to it again, because I legitimately enjoy it. It's been a long time though since I've listened to it.
That's probably, for me, the song that I find so bad. But I like bad, but good bad. Keep away from the digital bitch. Keep away. It's like, oh, dude, you couldn't come up with better lyrics than that. She's so rich, the digital bitch. Ooh, Ian, you rhymed rich with bitch.
I know, it's such a stretch, but it's such a decadent.
It is.
It's just the ultimate like rock star. Like, we're gonna trash our hotel room and set everything on fire kind of album. Yeah,
and the thing is that's it is one of those records that kind of like personifies heavy metal rock star excess. Again, to your point, so much so that, you know, Spinal Tap, one of the major scenes, is the fucking Stonehenge scene in the movie, right? So, I don't know. I just seemed, to me, it just seemed like a classic record right from the beginning. So it's interesting because in terms of arguments, would you qualify this as, you know, the quote unquote Metallica argument, which is to say, you know, the fucking Metallica argument, or the Rolling Stones versus Beatles argument, you know, which is better, or where did Metallica start sucking? Would you qualify this type of a thing in the same kind of argument? I use that category and I call it the Metallica argument. The reason I ask is because Black Sabbath seems to be lumped in there, but I've yet to meet anyone that dislikes the record. No one. Do you know anyone that dislikes the record?
I remember in the 80s having arguments with people who just hated that record. But I was a young teenager back then, 83, 84, 85, still talking about it. But I mean, I'm sure we're going to hear in the comments people that don't like that album.
Well, look, I mean, it's funny that you say that because there's a guy that gave me his records, and this was in the pile of records that he gave me. So, he didn't think enough of it to keep it. So he decided, you know what, this guy likes anything. I'll give it to him. Yeah, and I still have that same.
I too am a recipient of this chick likes anything. I'll just give her all of it. Yes. And yeah, most of the time they're right. Not always.
No, but I'm comfortable with that. Thank you very much for thinking about me. Guess what, man? It's like 35 years later, I still have the same record, man. It's pretty cool. So yeah, the Black Sabbath argument. Yay or nay? You say yay, right?
Oh hell yeah, I love that album.
One part of Vinyl Junkies history before these programs is I used to do videos on YouTube and stuff, and in 2011 went to Roadburn and wound up interviewing a very, very, very inebriated Matt Pike while he was there doing Sleep. It was during the period he was on the some of those early reunion tours. And it was during the period, like I think Roadburn was the last big thing that he did before he went to France and basically just entered rehab and said fuck it, he cleaned up. So yeah, that interview, I interviewed a very inebriated Matt Pike, and the discussion had centered exactly around this record, and even he had said, oh yeah, fuck yeah, this record absolutely fits in the canon, no matter how much people prefer one period over another. It's an army of one, it stands in the metal canon. And he quoted, there's one part, now I'm going to have to go look at my own interview, because during the interview, he was coked out, drunk, all sorts, right, smoked out, and somehow throughout of all of that, he just starts thinking to himself, he zones out and thinks to himself, the gray and plastic retards, and he just says this, and kind of like makes allusions to the fact that it's from a Black Sabbath song. It's like, hey, wait a second, what song did that come from? And I told him that those lyrics came from a song, and I don't remember if I said the right one, but there are indeed lyrics alluding to gray and plastic retards in Born Again, and it is from the song Born Again. It is the title track.
Don't use that word anymore, but okay.
Yeah. That's true, but Ian Gillan, it's a different world, man. You can't use the same words you used to use.
Yeah, I know. It's from a different era.
And it wasn't meant as such either. It's just, the words just take on different meanings as they evolve is all, The
thing I like about that album and the Dio stuff is that I listen to Sabbath because all hail Iommi. That's what it boils down to for me. I mean, and I love Dio and I love Ian's vocals, and obviously I love Ozzy. Like, I love everything about Sabbath. But when it gets down to the core of it, it's Iommi that I'm really, really interested in. I want to hear he's the god.
He's the
god of the riff. So
I realize that my favorite Black Sabbath song, I've said this before, I've actually claimed that Born Again was my favorite Black Sabbath record, and that may have been too much. It's kind of like in that enthusiasm, but now I've had decades to think about it. I'm pretty sure that my favorite Black Sabbath song is Disturbing the Priest. And
really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure just that riff. And Ian Gillan sounds like he's summoning demons. The screams are blood-curdling. They're blood-curdling, and that's what I like about metal. That's what I always liked about just the sheer raw power of Ian Gillan's voice is in full effect on that song. And it's like, okay, well, if you listen to Black Sabbath for the Ionic riff, which of course we all do, well, I used to listen to Deep Purple. A lot of the reason, obviously there's the Richie Blackmore and everything else, but it's just that vocal, man. Ian Gillan became the star of Deep Purple immediately, kind of thing, as soon as he was introduced to the band, because he had those lungs, man. You put that together with an Iommi riff, it's like, it's gonna sound pretty fucking evil. So I'm sure I'm the only human being in the world who thinks that Disturbing the Priest is the best Black Sabbath song ever.
Well, it's subjective. It's your favorite. It's not my favorite, but I love that album. I like that song.
So you're not going to tell me that like I suck because I picked it?
No, why would I do that? That's dumb.
I don't know, because it's
People
the internet.
like what they like.
It's the internet. Be mean, troll, please, troll.
Oh, okay. Am I supposed to pull like Jack Black and High Fidelity?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Go to the mall. What are you listening to, Kim? Kim.
I got a beautiful, pristine 1975 copy of Toots and the Maytals, Funky Kingston. This is a classic reggae album. One of the best ever made.
Overall, one of my favorite reggae albums from the 70s. My favorite period of reggae is exactly this. And you see, you're showing the back cover and I'm showing the front cover. I have it as well.
Okay.
It's, in terms of 70s records, the Bob Marley stuff is pretty easy, but it's almost too easy to talk about because everybody loves Bob Marley.
As they should.
As they, Bob Marley is like the Marineland of reggae music. Everybody loves Marineland. So Bob Marley, it's the same thing, but there's a song that you can make, but it includes Bob Marley. It's too fucking easy. Everybody loves Marineland, Kim, is what I'm trying to say to you. So when you try to go a little deeper, you go into the Lee Perrys, and one of the big records was that, do you know the record War in a Babylon?
Yeah.
That one. And this here, that funky Kingston.
I am a big fan, too, of Black Uhuru and Burning Spear. I love those bands. And this one, I can't, this looks like I just took the shrink off of it. I can't believe how good of a copy it is. But,
yeah, mine's a little mucked up.
I haven't checked to see, I'm sure this has been reissued. I'm sure you can get your hands on this.
No, actually, I took a look because the minute Kim and I share show notes, right? So I saw Funky Kingston. I'm there. Hey, let me take it out. I've been listening to that kind of music, and I'll do that as well. As I was looking through Discogs, I realized something for the first time. I don't know if you know this, Kim, but that record, the one we were holding with the picture, is not the original pressing of Funky Kingston. 1975, it's actually a compilation. Okay, because Funky Kingston was originally released in 1973 with different songs. So, including an Ike and Tina Turner cover song. I've never heard the album. Okay, and I didn't know that until just a couple of hours ago as I was listening to the record and kind of just, doing a bit of research. But the original Funky Kingston was released 2 years before, I think, on a label called Dinosaur Records. And then only later, Blackwell, who created Mango Records. Mango Records, that's a subsidiary of Island Records. And all of this, right? Decided, hey, you know what? If we're going to put this record out in the States, let's make it a little more palatable. So by that time in 1973, reggae really hit the big stage with The Harder They Come, the movie. Right, which
Jimmy Cliff,
exactly, which introduced Jimmy Cliff and the Maytals and the Ethiopians and a whole bunch of bands to the world for the first time, and Bob Marley's Catch a Fire. Catch a Fire was the album that kind of launched him. So Blackwell was part. That's his name, right? Blackwell.
Chris Blackwell.
Yeah, Chris Blackwell.
Island,
that's right.
Island, yeah.
The blonde guy, the albino guy. As he was doing this, and he released Funky Kingston, what he did was, he took a bunch of songs and kind of repackaged it with, he removed some stuff like the Ike and Tina Turner song doesn't appear on our copy. The song, what's on this album? The big one that's on the movie too, Pressure Drop, right? Yeah, Pressure Drop, which is the second to last song on side B. That's a 1969 song, which was already taken and put in the 1973 compilation. So it's just kind of one of those add-ons that Blackwell made around the album. And I think there were just a couple others. But all this is to say that they're two completely different records. You're right, it hasn't been reissued in a while. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only reggae fan that would probably want to buy both of them just to see what the deal is, right?
Yeah, one interesting thing about Frederick Toots Hibbert, I think was his last
Yeah,
name.
Toots.
Hibbert.
Hibbert, yeah.
That he had a 1968 song called "Do the Reggae," and that is the first use of the term reggae. Reggae
Correct.
comes from that song. So
Reggay.
yeah, it was spelled differently, but he's the one that came up with the reggae.
Yep.
So, and Pressure Drop, if that sounded familiar to you, a lot of people have covered it, but the Clash famously covered Pressure Drop, which is an amazing cover. So good.
I realized I only knew the Clash from the radio stuff, you know, so should I stay or should I, all that stuff.
Rock the Casbah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, right? It's only after I started digging into the albums much more that I realized how influenced they were by ska and reggae more than practically anything else, you know, because if you listen to the hits, I mean, that's not what you hear, right? You listen to Sorry, go ahead.
No.
Yeah, listen to Lost in the Supermarket. Okay, you know, that's a little different too. It's not quite, it's not, but then, yeah, you know, they did stuff like Pressure Drop, and there's a lot of other songs that have kind of like that ska vibe. I didn't know that came from Toots.
Yeah, reggae. I mean, people always talk about Bad Brains being, Bad Brains is very much reggae and punk, and a little bit of punk and reggae. Parts of the big stuff that we're talking about. I'm not going to get into a big, huge Bad Brains thing because, wow, I could go for hours on that. But the Clash did it too. The Clash did punk and reggae.
It just wasn't that obvious. It wasn't that obvious. Like I said, growing up with it, that wasn't on the radar at all. The whole reggae ska inflections weren't on the radar at all until much later. Where it is that if you're going to use the Bad Brains example, for me, it's, well, listen, you know, you put on a record, you listen to something like Rally Round Jaw Throne. That's not trying to be anything but a straight up reggae song, or even something like The Prophet's Eye. I mean, it's reggae. It's just, it's straight up reggae, you know? There's no genres being bent there. Other than it's the same band that's doing hardcore, punk, and reggae all within the same album.
No, the Clash did it too. I mean, I grew up knowing that, but I was way into reggae even as a little kid. I mean, I was in Africa when Bob Marley went and played in Zimbabwe. You know, like, he was a big part of my growing up. Reggae was. So
reggae was, I mean, listen, I'm asking a question because I wouldn't know and you would know better than me, but it's reggae was big in Africa as well?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Yeah, it was like, finally, music for, you know, that's not just white people plunking around on a guitar, you know. Yeah, reggae was huge.
Did you
huge in Africa.
Jesus, it always goes back to Fela Kim, but now I'm curious. Were you living there during those Fela years? I mean, was Fela an artist? Fela an artist that was kind of like felt his music influence? I mean, we can talk about it after the fact, right? But I'm just wondering if you were there during that time, was there this kind of like heavy reverberation? Did people understand what that music would come to mean? Like, or what was your impression of it?
We're talking about a huge continent, and I lived on the equator, in East Africa.
Okay.
So Fela was up in the north, but west. And so there's all kinds of different. I mean, you talk to Grant. There's like High Life and whatever, all kinds of different things. But everybody in the continent knew who Miriam Makeba was. Everybody in the continent knew who Bob Marley was. Everybody knew who Fela was.
Everyone must have known who Manu Dibango was as well.
Yeah, any of the big reggae stars. I mean, I remember hearing it all the time. Like, you could walk through any market or street or whatever, and you would always hear Bob or Toots or whatever. I would always hear reggae. And then ska in the 80s when that started happening.
One of my favorite things... Oh man, I should really save it because at the end of June we're doing a reggae show with Shane. But reggae compilations were such a big thing to me because they're the ones that got me into the individual albums. And again, it's always that Bob Marley argument. It's not because it's just Bob Marley's just too obvious. To collect all of Bob Marley's records is way too obvious. It's like collecting the Beatles. And I really don't think that we're I'm overstating that at all. When you think reggae, that's what you think of. It's just, you know,
but there's nothing wrong with that either.
no, not at all. Not at all. It's just, as a music guy, I wanted to hear more. And I
Right.
began finding it more interesting as I started discovering stuff like, the is it Large Professor? No, Mad Professor is who I'm thinking about. And the
Right.
reggae inflections and the weirder stuff. And with
Yellow Man and all that, yeah.
yeah. And that concludes that part of the segment.
So what have you been listening to?
Steve Moore, which kind of seems like we always go back to the same thing. But as we were talking about A.E. Patera, Majeur last week, and how much you liked it,
Yeah.
I'm just kind of getting into the swing of things, but no new records came in, so I'm digging into my older catalog and stuff, and I found myself going into Steve Moore. So when we were talking, you and I, about Zombie and how A.E. Patera is Majeur, and that's half of Zombie, the other half is Steve Moore, and he put out a lot of records as well. Okay, and as I was looking through Discogs, I realized this guy's got like a dozen records, and he's scored quite a bunch of soundtracks. As a matter of fact, that's his kind of career now, right? He's become a guy that puts out a lot of soundtracks, and I'm showing the soundtrack here that was released last year, 2017, to a movie I've never seen called The Mind's Eye. Okay. The reason it is that I'm pointing this out is because it seems like you like a lot of the synth horror stuff and just synth music in general. And there's a lot of us there that have it. So for those of you who wanted to know what the other half of Zombie was, this is it, Steve Moore. This soundtrack.
Oh, that's a cool cover.
It's
Holy shit.
Dude, but I don't know if you're able to see it in the light, but if you check it in the light, you'll notice
that reflection or whatever.
Yeah, it's got the spot varnish. So all the veins on the face are all spot varnished. And probably, all things considered, the soundtrack world is an entity unto its own with its own stratosphere of prices. So I've kind of like moved away from a lot of the soundtrack stuff simply because it's entered collector territory, and I don't do that. I want the music, But in this particular case, that Steve Moore album I showed is released on Relapse. And they've released other stuff on Relapse from Steve Moore and Zombie and so forth. The difference is that it's affordable. And it's nice wax, dude. It's nice wax. It's nice thick wax. That's what she said. You see the jacket, and it's reasonably priced. So if you had to kind of go, if you guys are trying to, get that synth horror or that synth, you want that kind of music and you want to do it a little bit more on the affordable, if you're living in North America, Relapse, man. A lot of this stuff's available there.
I love Relapse in general. But yeah, the soundtrack thing, I get it. They can price it. It's usually really high quality stuff. Jacket, pressing, vinyl, master, blah, blah, blah. But holy shit, I can't afford to collect that stuff. I can't.
No.
It's too goddamn expensive.
And I'm not the market anymore. I'm a music guy. I'm not the market anymore. I'm not going to spend $50. Fuck you. I just won't. I had this discussion with Rossiter over at Org Music just yesterday, I think, or Friday. Org Music, right? When we just had exactly this conversation because we're working on a project right now, and we're arguing about, okay, in order to put records together, right, you have to kind of achieve the right balance between putting together a quality product while keeping it fairly affordable to buy. So in other words, the minute you start getting into $50 territory, it's fuck you territory. It's just, that's not my world. It's the collector's market. I completely accept that labels have to do that, and it kind of helps them. So in the case of Relapse, for example, I hated the fact that they do that, but Relapse kind of gets a pass because Relapse also releases the cheap stuff. And by cheap stuff, I don't necessarily mean that they sacrifice massive quality. It's just you're not being front-loaded with all of these little trinkets that you got to pay extra for. It's only normal. So me and Rossiter were kind of talking back and forth on what would you, like for you, right? If you had to choose a record, what would you consider the most crucial elements to that record in order for you to say, and what price point would you put, right?
I mean, it depends. The most important thing is the sound, the mastering, the recording itself.
How much does a
And
hundred?
I don't care if that's 180 gram or not.
Okay, so if
But
you had to save a couple of bucks, there's a place where you wouldn't mind so much, right?
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have to be 180 gram. It could be just normal, but the sound has got to be really good.
Okay, look, I'll tell you what my standards are, and they might be unrealistic, and they might go crazy on the net and come up with others. But this is my standard when I look at it. Okay, $25 or less is one standard. At that point, I'm comfortable with pretty easy packaging, nothing too elaborate. So you don't have to go with a spot varnish. You don't have to go with a stout and tip on. You don't have to go with any of that. You go with a pretty standard package, but don't give me that shitty paper that's don't give me something flimsy. Give me something that's still something that's substantive. It doesn't even have to be a gatefold, because I understand they cost more. Okay, if you're going to charge a few dollars more, this is the question I wanted to ask you. The difference, for example, between, and Melvins would be the perfect example, right? Because Melvins have their standard records that come out on Ipecac, and they're affordable, right? There's nothing special. Right. And then they have the super, stuff that all of the artists, including
silk screen art,
that cost a fortune, right? If we had to take that furthest example out of the picture, the whole silkscreen personal thing, okay, and we just went to manufacturing, okay, how much do you think it's worth to have that extra experience of a good jacket with a gatefold sleeve and proper liner notes? To you, for example, is that something that's worth paying a little extra just to enhance your experience? Or would you rather save X amount of dollars and get a cheaper version?
I mean, it depends. Liner notes would be nice for a change. That seems to be going away.
Yeah.
And a decent enough sleeve. I mean, my breaking point is right around $28. 28, 29. When you push over 30, I'm just like, it better be a double or a triple or something before I'll even, and I don't buy that much new. I do buy new, but I don't buy that much new.
I'll go 30.
I don't know.
I'll go 30. For me, that's pretty much 30, 32 even is where it is that I go, but I want a nice, the thing is because I'm working on a project, right? I'm working on a jazz project. So these are kind of decisions that we have to make. Now, the experience has to be similar to the originals. So you want a certain experience. If you're dealing with labels that did it that way, you can't cut, okay? CTI, you can't cut corners on a CTI. You shouldn't cut corners on an Impulse. You shouldn't make a shitty Impulse sleeve, because that's not what it's about. That's not what Creed Taylor was about when he presented the label and the product. He understood. Creed Taylor, when he started Impulse, charged $1 more. Impulse records cost $1 more than all the rest. So $2.99 is what the price was for other records, and $3.99 is what Creed would charge. Creed Taylor would charge for Impulse records, specifically because you got a nice slab, because you got a beautiful gatefold sleeve, you got the entire experience, and he thought that people would be willing to pay for that, and they did.
Well, yeah, okay, so you're talking about reissues. That's different than something new, too. If you're doing a reissue of CTI, then you have to do the cover. The cover is very, very important.
Yeah.
That's part of CTI's whole thing was the cover. So that's different.
Do you have another example? I have an example we could use, but do you have another example? Maybe we'll use yours.
For reissue stuff, I don't know.
No, new. Let's say a new artist. Think about new.
Well, here's one that's sitting right in front of me. Nick Cave. All of his stuff tends to be, every once in a while, there's a couple that aren't as high quality, but man, excuse me, he went all out for this one. Beautiful Creatures.
That's the new one, right? The new comp?
Yeah, this is a triple. Whoa,
yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, that's also a Stoughton jacket. I can just tell by the way it's printed, that's a Stoughton jacket.
So, and it's triple, and I think they're all 180 gram, and I really like this, it's kind of a matte. There's no gloss here except for in the the details or whatever.
Oh, there's a spot varnish?
Oh, wait. No, I take that back. It's just there's some embossing on there. There's no spot. But there's definitely embossing through these shapes. And there's no spot. It's all matte.
Okay, so let's use... Okay, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So let's use that as an example, right? You take that record. You got 180. How much did you pay for it?
You know, I don't remember, but it was a decent amount. It was at least 40, I think, and I would pay that all day long.
And that's exactly it. And you know why I'd be comfortable paying 40 for that? There's a bunch of reasons. The first reason is there's 3 records. The second reason is that they're 180. And now if they've committed not to just slap something stupid on it, but if they committed to the entire experience and that's what it looks like there, the 180 does become there, because it's just, you know, you don't put a lipstick on a pig. You don't. You got to do the whole thing. So 180 grams, right? The jacket looks like it's high quality. You look at the entire...
It's very...
Okay, well, $40. It's funny because for me, my break point for the single record is about 32. My breaking point for double albums is 35. And triple albums, I'll go to the 40, 42 or whatever, depending on what you give me.
Yeah, I really don't remember. I might have paid up to 50. I would have paid anything for that, though.
Yeah, but you're a Nick Cave maniac, right? So
yeah,
fair.
Yeah, but I mean, they did not fuck around with that pressing. It's everything about it is tip top.
Yeah. Well, look, for me, you know, it's just anybody fucks with new Impulse, I'm gonna buy them. I want them. You know, it's just I like that, but I want it to be a certain way. Even Impulse moved away from their own thing, and Blue Note too. During the 70s and 80s, they tried to make everything cheaper, right? Everything was about making it cheap, so the records were flimsy and all. And even the jackets, you'll notice that the 80s Impulse still have the orange and black spines, but they're single. They're single records, and they went all in on the digital thing also. So splashed all over the covers as digital recording.
Well, you know, they were trying to survive, so I can't blame them for whatever they needed to do.
Nah, not at all. You know, and even you'll notice a lot of the Blue Note reissues on vinyl from the 80s. They'll all very, very, very clearly tell you that, you know, digitally remastered and all the rest, because that was the massive selling point. But,
that was a big deal. DMM.
DMM, yes. That's another that's the gourmet shit. That's even higher. That's the DMM. The DMM and the half-speed mastering is that's the gourmet shit. Or later on the MoFis and all the rest. But you know, you obviously have Fleetwood Mac Rumors, right?
Yeah.
You copy a nice clean copy or no?
Yeah, and a matter of fact, in the store we have a Nautilus test press of the half-speed master.
Oh, have you done you may be.
I listened to it.
You may be totally destroying my argument here, because I have an original copy, and I played it this week, and it sounded fabulous. It sounded perfect. I can't for the life of me. And like, I don't remember how many copies were sold, 21, 25 million, dozens of millions of copies of Rumors are floating around. Okay. And I have a regular old copy that came out in 75, Canadian pressing, nothing spectacular, and it sounds amazing. It sounds totally tits. So now we got these MoFis, right? And okay, it's taken from this tape and it's taken from that tape, and we're gonna charge you $50 for the record.
That's the whole MoFi thing. I get it, and I have a couple. I don't have very many of them, but I always equate MoFi stuff to the same thing as the hardcore audiophile guys.
Yeah, but what are you selling at that point?
Group of people.
What are you selling at that point? That's what it is that I'm trying to say. Because, look, I mean, I'm not an audiophile. I'm not. I've listened to many different types of equipment, and you know, I try to listen within the standard of that budget. So I don't kind of expect $1 million system to sound, you know, there's a difference, right? I think that I'm just a regular guy who loves music. I'm never going to be the audiophile who spends a fortune on stuff. You know, with my ears just being something that I listen to all the time, but untrained, if you wish, I'm a layman.
Right.
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine the MoFi version sounding any better than my 75 copy of Rumors, because Rumors sounded perfect. So at one point, what are you buying? It's like, are you buying smoke and mirrors, or are you buying something where it's like, okay, there's something here.
There is something there. It's just not. It's not something I care about. I get it. I hear it. I understand the audio file. I understand the MoFi, the half-speed masters. I get it. You can see that something there. But I'm the one who will buy the absolutely beat to shit Blue Note original whatever and listen to it happily, even through the snaps, crackle, pop, skip. I'm that person. I want the music. So it's just not.
I'll upgrade from there. That's exactly right. Yeah, look, and the thing is, let's be clear on something else. Okay. All the original copy snobs. Oh, it's OG. I don't buy listen. Okay. First off, fuck you. Not fuck you. That's too rough. Fuck off.
That's rough.
Fuck off is a little less pointed, but fuck off. The reason I'm trying to say this is what were we talking about? You go ahead. I lost my train of thought. Just to show you how invested I am.
It's the same thing. Like, I mean, I get those guys because I work at a record store. They tell me that they only collect the original. They only have to be pristine. And I'm, if that's your thing,
that's what we were going with.
You like your thing. It's not for me because I just want the music. I don't care if it's OG, reissue, blah, blah, blah. For me, it doesn't matter. But if it does matter to you, then more power to you, because that frees me up to collect something that's maybe not first press but original.
I guess, look, the thing is that the argument falls on itself a bit. That's the point I was trying to make, okay? A lot of the audiophiles will talk about, or a lot of the record snobs will talk about original press this, original press that. Think about a lot of these records. I mean, the 60s stuff, without a doubt. Everything 60s and before, like all that stuff is the top quality in terms of manufacturing. But a lot of those records were played on really shitty sound systems. Before the revival, I didn't know a single person who used to replace their cartridges. I'm not bullshitting. So these old records have been played on shitty systems with cartridges that haven't been replaced, and audiophiles can talk to you till the cows come home about they're older records. You don't know where they've been. You don't know the history. Sometimes, you know what? A clean reissue is the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
But how about the MoFi, right? Let's say when you're talking about MoFi for a band like Steely Dan, right? That would be the other example. Steely Dan, that's production is already up there, okay? Or, I'll probably destroy my own argument, but Dark Side of the Moon. I have a MoFi copy of Dark Side of the Moon. It's the best sounding copy of Dark Side of the Moon I've ever heard in my life.
Well, then there you go. You do hear something. So I don't know. I get it, but I don't relate to it. I just want the music. I don't care if it's MoFi or Dynaflex. If it's the music that I'm interested in. But that's me collecting. If your jam is MoFi and First Press and Pink Island and blah blah blah, then more power to you. Oh my God. Oh.
Welcome to my world, Kimberly.
Are you done?
I am.
Music. What other music?
What other music? What did you say just before this?
You know what? Speaking of new music and reissues and stuff like that, I do have something that I pre-ordered and got that I wanted to talk about. Quality and all that kind of stuff.
Please do.
Okay. So, Pop Tone. I ordered the Pop Tone album. Pop Tone, for those of you that don't know, the band Bauhaus, one of the best bands of all time, in my personal opinion. Peter Murphy, Kevin Haskins, David J, and Daniel Ash.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. Bauhaus, goth, post-punk gods. When Bauhaus broke up, well, even during that, Daniel Ash and David J. and I think Kevin Haskins, he did a band called Tones on Tail. Peter Murphy did his solo stuff.
Okay.
Daniel Ash also did Love and Rockets, blah, 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 blah.
You should maybe...
David...
Feel free to go through details because I don't know this stuff. Whenever you talk about this stuff, I learned the history through you, you know. I didn't know that there was any connection between Peter Murphy and Love and Rockets. And I don't know this. I want to know. Well, teach me. Teach me, Kimberly. Teach me.
Bauhaus was together. Daniel Ash played guitar. David J. played bass. Kevin Haskins played drums. Peter Murphy was the lead singer. David J. and Kevin Haskins, David J. Haskins, they're brothers, bass and drums.
Uh-huh.
While Bauhaus was going on, Daniel Ash and David J. and I think Kevin Haskins did Tones on Tail, which was kind of just an offshoot, separate thing. And then when, I might be getting this slightly off, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But then when Bauhaus broke up, they got back together later, blah, blah, blah. Peter Murphy started doing his solo albums, This, Deep, and some other stuff, which I love, love, love.
Okay.
And Daniel Ash, since Daniel and Peter were the frontmen, really. Daniel went off and did Love and Rockets, which was much more poppy, but still jangly guitar awesomeness.
I'm Alive. That was them, right?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah,
Yin Yang,
So Alive.
Yin
So Alive.
Yin Yang, the Flower Pot Man. That's them.
All that stuff is Love and Rockets.
Okay.
So, Tones on Tail only put out one. They put out several EPs, but only one album. And Tones on Tail is darker than. It's still kind of psychedelic and pop, but it has more Bauhaus darkness to them. So
still
it was
synthy.
a very short. I'm sorry?
Still synthy, though.
There's no synth in any of that.
No? Okay.
Well, there might be synth in Tones on Tail. I take that back. But Bauhaus is not very, I don't think them very synthy. Anyway, fast forward to 2017. Daniel Ash, Kevin Haskins, the drummer, and Kevin Haskins' daughter, her name's Diva. She's a bass player, so it's the three of them are doing a band that they called Pop Tone, and they're doing Tones on Tail stuff, Love and Rocket stuff, and just a little bit of Bauhaus stuff. So they're doing old stuff. I think they're working on new stuff. But I went and saw that tour, which was amazing. I danced my ass off. I got a little teary-eyed because I finally got to hear Tones on Tail live because I'd seen Love and Rockets, I've seen Bauhaus, I've seen Peter Murphy. Anyway. They released, I don't know if this is all live. You could pre-order the Pop Tone, the debut from Pop Tone. This is the studio one, playing the music of Tones on Tail, Bauhaus, and Love and Rockets with Diva. So I pre-ordered this, and I got it. And it's from Cleopatra Records, and it's nice and heavy. It's a double album. I kind of wish it was a gatefold.
What label is it?
Cleopatra. They do a lot of gothy kind of stuff. So I like the inner sleeves.
Have you posted it up in the group?
Nope. Well, I did. I'm not sure if I did or not, because the problem here is, and it's white vinyl, they sent me 2 of album 2.
That's
Side
happened.
C and D.
That's happened many times.
And that's happening a lot lately.
Yeah.
From a lot of different labels. So I don't have album 1. I have 2 of album 2.
But they'll give you the other one.
Right. And I emailed them and he emailed back. And he didn't say it straight up, but it sounded like a bunch of them went out like this. With 2 of album 2 or 2 of album, whatever. Not 1 and 2. So, and my friends in other record stores and I were talking about how often this seems to happen lately, these manufacturing or packaging issues. But I'm not pissed off about it, and they responded to me very quickly, and I'm sure it'll happen, but I was really sad. I was so excited to get it, and then shit, you know?
Yeah, but now you'll have a collector's item. Think about it.
Oh,
you can sell it for
collector.
millions of dollars on Discogs. because you have the fucked up version with the little initials engraved in the dead wax. So it's got to be worth at least $5,000 more. I'm going to just say a real quick sleep thing that's really cool. I didn't mention it. We can't fucking go on about sleep again. But there was one interesting thing about the sciences. First off, it debuted at number 12 on Billboard's Top 100. Fucking sleep in the top 12 is amazing. It doesn't really matter, but it's just I'm happy to see that they did that well. It sold over 20,000 copies, I think, on vinyl. If you look in the dead wax of those records, all 4 of them have dead wax that's drawn in Morse code.
Morse code, yeah.
And if you look up what those Morse code meanings are, each of them stand for a particular strain of marijuana. And I don't remember what the other ones are. I think maybe one's called God Kush, but I do know that there's definitely one called Cat Piss Romulan. Now, I didn't know enough, so I went and looked it up, and sure enough, there is marijuana that exists that is so potent, it smells like cat piss. My question at that point is, why would you smoke it?
Because it's weed. Why? Not all of us, live in places where it's legal and you get to pick and choose. So.
Okay. So you know what? That's so true, though. I guess
it wasn't that legal all that long ago for you either. So.
Yeah. So you guys are still like maybe in the land of the dirt weed, almost, right? Just like some people. Not like that.
I haven't seen dirt weed, and I can't even remember the last time I saw dirt weed. But we don't get to, go in and say, I'll take this, that, and the other, and do you have this, that, and the other? So, if you partake of such things in states like this.
No, we're just talking.
Yeah. Speaking of that sleep, and I will shut up about sleep, I'm going to get the CD because I want to hear it all the way through without flipping that album twice to hear all 4 sides.
Really, eh?
I'm going to get the CD. Yeah, I'm ready to hear. I want to hear the whole thing all the way through. Okay.
My experience is different. I've listened to it absolutely every single day since I've gotten it. It's still very, very... I'm not going to be putting that one away for a while. I've gotten used to listening to it as side 1, 2, 3, and 4, and know what to expect from every side, and know that what I'm getting on side 1 is not the same experience I'm going to get on side 3. I think the long one, Sonic Titan, is side C. So just listening to it in that way, I'm not saying there's any right or wrong, obviously, but just listening to it that way has kind of like influenced the way I listen to records. You remember the way it was with tapes? You had to flip it over. Side 1 sounded a certain, so that experience is something that, if anything, I associate with the sciences or pretty much any record now, because I get it all on wax. But it's interesting that you would say that you just want the continuity. It's almost like, if you had to pick, what's the big one? Dope Smoker. I guess you'd want it on CD also.
I have both.
You have both. Okay. That makes sense.
Sleep is one of the few ones, and Yob is kind of that way too for me, where I want both. I collect vinyl because I like listening to the vinyl format, and I don't mind flipping records, and I get all of that. But Sleep and probably Yob, maybe a little bit of Electric Wizard, I like to be able to hear the whole thing without any kind of interruption, especially Sleep.
Yeah, I would assume Neurosis is in that group also, if I'm catching your drift. Like,
who?
Your Neurosis?
I mean, I have Neurosis on CD. I don't mind it as much. I have CD and vinyl of Neurosis.
Oh, okay.
I have mostly CD, actually.
But... I thought maybe the line that kind of crosses all the bands that you're talking about to kind of make the decision whether you take it on CD or not is the epicness of the songs. If the songs tend to be long, it seems like you prefer the CD experience.
I don't prefer it. I'd like to have both, though. And
you like to have both, okay.
I'm just ready for Sleep to be all the way through. So, anyway, moving on. Enough of the Sleep talk. What else you got?
You know what? I don't know if I have a whole lot more. Well, I always have... Oh, yeah, you know what? I am going to talk about something. Say something. Okay, I'm thirsty. I want to get a drink. Is that okay? You have shit to talk about.
Hey, this is This is Ada. She's my old girl.
She's not
I
the
know
one.
you guys don't care.
No, we all
No,
care.
No. She's not the talker.
We all care, and we hear her purr too, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, man.
She's getting a little old. She's 13.
Kitties and vinyl forever, man. Kitties and vinyl forever. So, Ada, you rule, and welcome to Vinyl Junkies.
She's drooling all over me. Ugh.
Did you have to have some of her teeth pulled? That's usually what happens, right?
Yeah, she's had to have her teeth pulled.
Okay.
But she drooled before that, too. But yeah, it's worse now. It's fine.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so if I had to talk about another record, look, I'm putting together my pool mix, and once that starts coming around, and usually once the yard work starts, that's when the music changes, because I bring the Bluetooth out and the summer mix comes out, and all of that's been happening. Cleaning the pool. Next week, it's ready to go. All the music comes out. One thing that always winds up coming out is my Valle records. Now, I keep singing the praises of Light in the Attic because they've consistently introduced Was that me?
No, that was me. Sorry.
Okay. They consistently introduced artists that I didn't know that I really needed to, and Valle was one of them. In 2013 or so, they released a whole bunch of, they released 4 records in this collection, and I remember flipping through the bins at this record store, Phonopolis, nearby, and seeing this, and I already knew Light in the Attic, and, you know, I knew what to expect. I trusted their curation. They had put out Gainsbourg. They had put out stuff I like, but I didn't know this guy. But I took a chance because it looks like the guy is just high as fuck at the bottom of a pool. And that, if it sounds like it looks like he just looks like zero fucks given. He's high as a kite under there, and it's just, he is the most refreshed human being on the planet at that particular moment. So I needed to know. I'm there, you know what? This is the way it is that I like my summers to go. I want to look like this, you know? So I bought the records and proceeded to get just a bunch of psychedelic samba that took traditional Brazilian beats, but just added all of these psychedelic elements that I didn't expect before, and realized that this guy was just a big hippie. And these records were originally only available in Brazil on the Odeon label, but and what he was trying to do here is a lot more serious than what I just said and why I bought it. It was a time of political upheaval in Brazil, and what he's trying to do here is he's trying to look like somebody who's been shot by the militia. But I find he looks more high than he looks shot, so... My misconception led me to buy Valle, and as a result, my summer mixtape has gotten better from 2013 forward. There's 4 of them, 4 volumes. I wound up getting all of them. They're all good, but if you want really the most psychedelic one, the one I showed, Previsão do Tempo, top notch.
Yeah, I don't have any, but I'm in for Valle. Yeah, everything that I've heard, I have heard the music is really, really, really good.
Yeah. Well, actually, what I did this weekend is I played all of the records to kind of just go over everything again with a fine-tooth comb and pick out the songs that I want most on it, because got to play that stuff outside. And Kimberly, just like that, we're at 58 minutes. We did another show.
Oh, well, I'm going to show this anyway, because I got it. My friend Paul found a Siouxsie and the Banshees record for me. And I am on the hunt for Siouxsie and the Banshees. Reissue this shit, please. Oh my God,
Not
I'm
available?
dying. It's
actually, you know what?
Apparently, Universal reissued the last 4 albums in like 2011, 2012 on CD. Oh my God, fuck! It is so hard to find Siouxsie and the Banshees stuff. So, thank you, Paul. This is a major, major holy grail shit. This is holy grail shit for me. See, all the Siouxsie stuff. I've got 4. I have like, whatever, 4 more to go, 6 more to go, whatever. It's so hard to find Siouxsie.
I always liked Siouxsie. The Banshees,
this is
not
a kiss
so
in the
much.
dream house. I love the Banshees.
The Banshees, I found that they always held their back. You know, Siouxsie was always the leader of the band.
Well, I mean, most of the Banshees changed all the time, but Budgie and Severn No, you're high.
Actually, no, I'll go even one step further. I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. I'm just talking
Okay.
because I don't know Siouxsie and the Banshees very much. You remember I admit that you teach me all this stuff, so
Ah,
what I'm doing is I'm doing shtick. Bad shtick. Bad shtick.
gotcha.
And it is on that note, Kim, that we must bid the Vinyl Junkies audience adieu.
Adieu.
So until 45, we wish you, fellow Vinyl Junkies, happy spinning and thank you for watching.
And happy Memorial Day weekend for the Americans.
Rock and roll.